Five Nights at Freddy's 1 is one of the most mysterious games in the entire FNAF series. It just recently celebrated its 10th anniversary, and yet there is a lot of stuff in this game that has not been explained very briefly. Although a lot of things have changed when just recently we've got an entirely new FNAF Choose Your Own Adventure book, FNAF The Week Before. In this video, I'll try to analyze all the most important details, lore bits, easter eggs and connections it has to the game's lore. So, first things first. This book takes place, as the title says, a literal week before the events of FNAF 1. The main character is a Fazbear Entertainment's worker and 22-time Employee of the Month, Ralph. If that does not ring any bells, we can also add that he is also known under the nickname of our beloved and fan favorite Phone Guy. Ralph is a single father who is trying his best to make his life and the life of his daughter Coppelia the best it can be. Working at Freddy's is his bread and butter. He's been working there for a long time, but now he has finally decided to move on and find a safer job to make sure he can be there to watch his 11-year-old daughter grow up. Besides the job at Freddy's not being the best job in the world, after so much time spent on working the day shift, he feels fulfilled and happy that he could have had this job in the first place. However, before he can finally close this chapter of his life, he gets one last task from the management. He has to spend 5 nights at Freddy's, or more specifically become a night guard for the next 5 nights. He agrees to do so, and that's where our story begins. The book consists of 5 normal nights and an additional secret one. In each of the nights, Ralph not only has to protect himself from the killer animatronics, but also make additional repairs of broken stuff in the restaurant, like changing light bulbs, fixing Bonnie, or cleaning a puddle of something that is surely tomato sauce. It's technically not a part of his job as the night guard, but he does this anyway. After all, he can't let Freddy's down, can he? This book is an interactive adventure. This means we, as the reader, are faced with multiple choices. We are the ones that make most of the decisions, which mostly does not end up pretty well for our dear Ralph, but if we do guide him well enough through this week, we are able to not only survive 5 nights, but also unlock a final 6th night. But why would he want to return there to do some extra work? You see, one of the most interesting events in this book is a burglary that happens on night 3. In the beginning of this night, when Phone Guy checks the security cameras, he finds a broken window and a large red puddle in one of the party rooms. First, he thinks some animal might have got to the restaurant through the window, but as time flies, it's getting more and more obvious that this whole mess was in fact caused by a human. We don't hear much about the burglar until the end of night 5. This is when Ralph is trapped inside the office, almost helpless against the animatronics that are trying to get in all together. This is when we get an option to dial different numbers on the office phone in order to get help. If our previous choices have led to Ralph finding an old ticket in the Pirate Cove, we can punch the numbers from it into the phone's keypad and play a message which someone left for Ralph. This is when we're introduced to a character named Bronwen Light. She was trying to get a job at Freddy's, but got rejected and started working as a junior reporter for probably some local newspaper. After hearing rumors about strange things happening in Freddy's, she decided to investigate it. As we learn later, she did in fact discover a lot of important stuff about the restaurant, the murders, the animatronics and much more. She wanted to publish it, but her editor forbade her to do so. Having learned that the animatronics are planning to escape the pizzeria, she couldn't just let it happen. She knew she had to do something, so she broke into Freddy's to try to stop them, but she failed. She got captured by Bonnie and put into the animatronic suit where she spent her last moments. Her last wish was for Ralph to stop the animatronics. If we choose to fulfill her wish and come back for night 6, we are able to get the phone Bronwen was using to record the message. It allows us to dial different phones in the pizzeria and distract the animatronics, but more importantly, it leads us to the ending of night 6. After successfully overcharging the animatronics and therefore stopping their plan, Ralph comes face to face with none other than Golden Freddy himself. After hearing a really aggressive amount of "It's me," Golden Freddy crushes Ralph's head, and that's how Ralph's story ends. Until it doesn't. Because after that we have a choice to begin this whole week once again. Now with the phone mentioned earlier already in our inventory. And I don't actually really know how to interpret that part, because the only logical explanation would be that Golden Freddy somehow manipulated the loss of space and time by giving the phone to Ralph from the past. There you have it. Golden Freddy is a time traveler. Eat that, Doctor Who! Anyway, if we choose to begin our story once again, now with a bonus item, we're faced with some new options while making the decisions. The most important one being the possibility to record messages for the next security guard. These are the exact same messages we can hear in FNAF 1, which seems to imply that this book is almost 100% canon to the game's continuity. It does not appear to contain anything that would make it impossible, and even has a lot of details explaining stuff that we can see in the games. Like for example when Ralph enters the security office for the first time and complains about the mess that the new day shift security guard left. The mess consisting of food wrappers and soda caps is the same mess we can see in the security office in FNAF 1. There is one specific thing that seems to differ from the games though. This being the rooms in FNAF 1 Pizzeria. Although all the rooms from the game are indeed a part of the story, there seems to be 3 additional ones of which existence we have never heard. This being the Party Room 1, the Party Room 2 and the Breaker Room. Never before have we heard about the existence of party rooms in the FNAF 1 Pizzeria. They were a part of FNAF 2 Pizzeria but were never mentioned as also being in FNAF 1. The same applies to the Breaker Room, because the only place that we know had a room like this was Circus Baby Entertainment and Rental. But let's get back to our main character. From the book's canon road, we know that Ralph somehow got to live through the events of his Night Guard week twice, ending the first one with finding out about Bronwen, acquiring the mobile phone and somehow getting transported to the beginning by getting killed by Golden Freddy. The second one ends with him recording the final message and dying the same way we know he did in the games. This whole concept of experiencing these events twice and also not remembering them seems pretty unreal at first, but that's where my small theory begins. If we do believe that Ralph was somehow transported back in time, then he definitely got transported by Golden Freddy. Because we know that he is the only FNAF 1 animatronic that can do stuff beyond space and maybe even time. Well, not counting that one time in this book where it was canonically said that Freddy can teleport. But why would Golden Freddy actually want to do something like this? I want you to remember, who do we play as in the first FNAF game? Michael Afton. He's the night guard who listens to Phone Guy's recordings and thanks to them manages to survive his night shift. We can even assume that without these recordings he wouldn't have been able to get out of this alive. The exact recordings that were created because of Golden Freddy. But for all of this to make sense, we also need to add what is Golden Freddy's or the Vengeful Spirit's main goal: to kill their murderer, William Afton. And now what is Michael's main goal? He tries to find his father and get rid of him once and for all, which he kind of manages to do while working with Henry in Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria Simulator. If not for Phone Guy's recordings, he might have died long before that. Maybe the Vengeful Spirit knew that someone who would guide one of the most important figures in their plan through the night shift is necessary, and that's why Ralph had to sacrifice himself for the greater good. There's also a lot of really cool Easter eggs and facts in this book that makes it one of the most interesting books from the entire series. Like the fact this book is the 3rd time something in this series used the names of the dead children from the MCI. The first time being the Silver Eyes trilogy, the second one being the FFPS ending, and now the 3rd one being this exact book. Interestingly, only 2 names are being used here. When Ralph is hiding from Chica in the kitchen, we can light a candle on a birthday cupcake. After this, Chica enters the kitchen and Ralph hides under a table. The animatronic sees the cake and looks at it fascinated. That's where Ralph starts uncontrollably singing the Happy Birthday song, and when he gets to the birthday boy-girl part, he fills the gap with the name Susie. After hearing that, Chica freaks out and runs out of the kitchen. This is caused by the fact that, as we know, Susie is the name of the spirit possessing Chica. The other time an MCI name is used is when Bronwen explains how she got into the pizzeria. She tells Ralph, quote, "I broke into the restaurant a few nights ago. Jeremy got me. Bonnie. Another interesting thing that this book gives us a very detailed description of are the bites. Yes, bites, because the book mentions both the bite of 87 and the bite of 83. The bite of 87 is mentioned while Ralph finds a foil gum wrapper on the floor and comments that now people leave trash here everywhere and that it wouldn't have happened in the old days. He complains that the franchise has really fallen on hard times since the kids went missing and the press completely blew the unfortunate bite. If only the victim could tell what he did to provoke the attack, says Ralph, but sadly the victim doesn't talk anymore. This seems to imply that the bite of 87 victim is now paralyzed. Moving on to the bite of 83, the mention about this one occurs when Ralph tries to put different combinations of 4-digit codes into the voicemail system. When he punches the numbers 1983, he hears a recording of the bite of 83. First he hears a kid crying and begging to stop. This is obviously the crying child. Then we hear one of the FNAF 4 bullies say they should give the kid a closer look. Then a man, possibly a security guard, rushes into the scene and shouts, "Hey, stop that! Put him down! Get back from the stage! Do not touch the bear!" People start shouting and screaming, and the cacophony of noise ends with one loud crunch. One of my favorite fragments of the book is also connected to the bite of 83. When Ralph uses the combination as a code, he remembers that there was indeed a bite in the year 1983. Although interestingly enough, people didn't call it the bite of 83 then, they called it the Big Bite. Only after another bite occurred in 1987, people started using the years to name them. This is really similar to how the First World War used to be called the Great War, because no one knew at the time that there sadly will be a second one. This isn't all. There's a lot more in this book to uncover, like for example how for a moment the animatronics want to get to Ralph's daughter, similar to how in the FNAF movie the animatronics want to make Mike's sister Abby one of them. But I feel like I've been talking about all of this for quite a while now, and I don't really think analyzing this book page by page in a true MatPat style is what you came here today for. And if you did, you can read the book yourself. Trust me, it is really worth its price. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to like and subscribe, and if you've noticed something interesting in this book as well, you can share it in the comments. Bye for now, and see ya on the next night shift.